So today we want to look at another ellipse, but this time it's going to be shifted. So really what we're going to see here is that our formulas that we talked about yesterday all still work, or the last time we were together. So all we have to do is the center is going to move. And just like we saw with the circle, if you had x plus 1 squared, you knew the center had an x coordinate of -1. And if you had a y minus 2 squared, you knew the center had a y coordinate of +2. It's going to be the same thing here. So our center is going to be at -1, 2. We go ahead and plot that on my coordinate plane there. But from that, we're going to use our A and our B and our C with the foci to help provide those other points. So it's just the whole thing is shifted, 1 unit left and 2 units up of just the standard centered at 0, 0. So in this case, A, well, we see that A squared is going to be 4. So A would be 2. So that means from the center, we'll go 2 to the right and 2 to the left to put these would be our co-vertices in this case because 4 is smaller than 9. So maybe we should list those here. That's going to give us the point -3, 2, and then 1, 2. Right, so we just went from the center, we went 2 left, and we went 2 to the right. B would be 3. So that's going to give us the vertices of -1, 5, and -1, -1. Right, so these are our 2 co-vertices. These are our 2 vertices. Again, if you refer to them all as vertices, that's fine. But we're going to go ahead and then we can make our ellipse, which passable, not great. Okay, now major axis length. Well, that was here. We went 3 units up, 3 units down. Major axis length would be 6. Minor axis length, we went 2 left and 2 right, so it would be 4. Now the foci, that's where we have to calculate C. So we have C squared is going to be 9 minus 5, so C squared, or 9 minus 4. Right, the larger denominator minus the smaller denominator. And then when we square root that, it's going to give us radical 5, which is just a little bit bigger than 2, correct? So we'll go a little bit more than 2 up for a focal point, a little bit more than 2 down for a focal point. Just label them f sub 1, f sub 2. Now to actually look at these points, let's go ahead and write them exactly. So we're going to start at the center and we're going to add radical 5 to 2. So one of them would be -1, 2 plus radical 5, and then -1, 2 minus radical 5. And that's how we would write the exact value there. Right, so so the center was at -1, 2. If you go up radical 5, you just add radical 5 to the y value. To go down, you just add radical 5 to or subtract radical 5 from the y value. Okay, so here's for our next one. This is number 7 on the worksheet here. We're just going to write an equation for this ellipse when it's written in standard form. Now, what this means is our standard form equation is going to be the same, except the numerators are not going to be x squared and y squared. They're going to be x minus h squared over a squared plus y minus k squared over b squared equals 1. So now we have to find a and b, and then we also have to find h and k as well. Okay, so the first thing we'll do is if we just look at, we could pretty much see where the vertices and co-vertices are going to be at, and from that we can reason out where the center is going to be. So this point should be at, this is 1, 5, and then over here is -9, 5. Right, those would be, that's your major axis, right? We can see that that's longer. Up here we have -4, 8. And then -4, 2. So if you know all that, we can see that these both have a y value of 5. So if you made a line there, it would hit at 5, stay at 5 the whole time for y. Here they both have an x value of -4, So we end up that our center is going to be at negative 4, 5. Okay. Now you could have averaged these too. You could have, if you take maybe these two endpoints on the major axis, you could say negative 9 plus 1 divided by 2, and then 5 plus 5 divided by 2, and that would give you negative 4, 5 also. So there's a couple ways to do that. Right? We talked about with circles, we talked about you look at a diameter, right, and then find the midpoint. Well, here look at either the major or minor axis, and then find the midpoint, and that's going to be the center. So in terms of our formula, we're going to get x plus 4 squared, and then plus y minus 5 squared, and then equals 1. So now we just need to find our a and our b. But we know a is just the distance from the center to these side-to-side vertices, correct? So in this case, that looks like it's 5 units, doesn't it? So a is 5. And then here it looks like b is going to be 3. And you could say negative 5 and negative 3 also, because you're going to square them, so it doesn't really matter. So then here we're going to get 25 and 9. That's how we would do that. So again, the point being is if you have a good foundation where they're centered at the origin, there's really not much different, right? You just kind of start from a different point. And again, it's going to make your vertices will look a little bit different. They won't just be 0 something and something 0. They'll have different values, but I think it's pretty doable there. For this one, if you did have to find the foci, so let's see, c squared is 25 minus 9, which is 16. So c is plus or minus 4. Right, if we did have to find the foci, it would be 4 units to the right. So that would be negative 1, that wouldn't, it would be 0, 5, and then over here would be negative 8, 5 would be your focal points. And then you would get, so negative 8, 5, and 0, 5. And then also, you could also be given other information maybe besides a graph. Maybe it tells you where the center's at, which would answer H and K, and maybe it tells you, the endpoints of the major axis, or how long the major axis is, and it's horizontal, so that tells you what A is. You kind of work your way backwards with the facts that we know. Or maybe you know information about the focal points, you know information about the major axis. You could still do the c squared equals a squared minus b squared to find the other denominators. So sometimes you can sort of reason your way through that. Okay.